panel of honorable judges and entire members of 11th ESDR. Good afternoon. I am Pradeep Adhikari, representing the team Law, and I am here to present on the topic non-justiciability of fundamental principles of state policy as a means for enjoyment of economic, social and development rights. Firstly, I would like to initiate with the definition of non-justiciability and fundamental principles of state policy. Non-justiciability refers to the situation where no question can be raised in any court regarding the enforceability or non-enforceability of certain human rights or any other legal provisions. And fundamental principles of state policies are the guiding principles or the blueprint being based on which a state is obliged to trace its roadmap for the establishment of its economic and developmental policies. The concept of non-justiciability and justiciability of fundamental rights is itself an unjust terminology, and it has been a subject of criticism since its origin. The root of such criticism resides upon the manufacturing defect prevailing within the manufacture of human rights. There exists a severe manufacturing defect within the manufacture of human rights because during the preliminary time when the human rights the concept of human rights developed, that the International Covenant on Civil Political Rights and International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights were promulgated. There was heated debate and great repulsion between the two poles of the contemporary world, that is, one led by Europe and USA and another led by USSR. And the continuous repulsion between these two poles of the world gave rise to a myth that the civil political rights overrides over the economic, social and development rights. And the contemporary states, guided by the confirmatory nature, confirmed the myth derived from that repulsion and adopted the civil political rights as a fundamental right or justiciable rights within their national legislation, and they adopted the economic, social and development rights as non-justiciable rights or the fundamental principles of state policy which were not justiciable. And the vigorous trend of enforcement of economic, social and development rights commences from here. Amartya Sen, in his Development Freedom, states that development is not only mean the fulfillment of basic needs of the individual, rather it is concerned with the protection against the infringement of elementary freedoms of an individual, expansion of substantive freedom of an individual. Here, Amartya Sen makes a clear distinction between the basic needs of an individual and the elementary freedoms and the substantive freedoms. Here, the basic needs are necessary for the survival of an individual, and the elementary freedoms and the substantive freedom are necessary for the living of an individual. And here lies a greater difference between living and surviving. Living is better than surviving. So, ignoring the economic, social and development rights, the modern states are compelling their subjects to survive, not to live. The political development and economic development poses the political freedom and economic development poses the inherent relationship among them. Constitutions of the nations and the national legislation themselves, being the political documents, provide certain rights to the individuals, and the non-enforceability of such rights ultimately leads to the violation of economic, social and development rights of the individual. The state adopted and accepted the civil and political rights easily because there was not such a bigger cost to be borne by the nation for the implication of such rights. But economic, social and development rights were too costly to provide to its subjects because it requires a high cost and a high welfare measures to be adopted by the nation for such enforcement. Kofi Annan, in his literature, Larger Freedoms Towards Development, Security and Human Rights for All, states that world must advance causes of security, development, human rights together. Otherwise, none will succeed. The human rights, irrespective of generation, are indivisible and necessary for the development of mankind. Here, Kofi Annan clearly states that the distinction of the rights of an individual is not appropriate. If the distinction between the rights is made, one right is prioritized, and the fulfillment, the priority is given in fulfillment of one right, and priority is not given to the fulfillment of another right. At this situation, both the rights became non-valuable. That means there is an inherent relationship between one right with another right. So it is inappropriate to differentiate the rights into non-justiciable rights and justiciable rights, divide the rights into positive and negative rights. Classification of human rights into justiciable and non-justiciable rights is inappropriate. For example, let us consider my entire body is a human right, and my heart is considered is a fundamental right, and my lung is considered is a non-enforceable or the directive fundamental principle of the state policy. If I got cut by some sort of diseases in my heart was treated regarding it is a fundamental right, but my lung was not treated regarding it is a non-justiciable right, and the consequence of it ultimately led to my death. That means if my heart is not treated and if my lungs is not treated, both ultimately leads to my death. It means providing priority to one right and not providing priority to another right ultimately leads to the invalidation of the provided rights as well. The rights provided under the fundamental principles of state policy are just like the mango trees outside that the state has cultivated. For example, there is a mango tree with sweet mangoes outside, and the owner of the mango tree says that, yeah, there is no difference between your mango tree and my mango tree. You can go out and have the mangoes as much as you can, but lock the door from outside. Here, the non-justiciability, the principle of non-justiciability is working just like that lock, and which is hindering to the enjoyment of the sweet fruit of mangoes. That is the economic, social, and development rights. So that we don't have any other alternative rather than unlocking that lock of non-justiciability. If it does not open with the key, it should be broken with a hammer. Only then the economic, social, and development rights can be enjoyed. Thank you.